Hello and welcome to Plain and Simple on the Plains. This is my introductory video to launch my new channel, and I wanted to start by just telling you a little story. This story begins very simply and very humbly about 55 years ago. This story begins with a little girl that was raised in a very simple time. This little girl was raised with parents who knew how to work the land. She came from generations of farmers. She came from generations of Texans. And she came from generations of learning how to eke out a living from a very harsh land environment. Anyone that's familiar with the plains knows that it can be very beautiful, but also very unforgiving and very rugged. Anyone that's familiar with any part of the plains knows that the weather can change quickly, and sometimes we have all four seasons of weather in one day. This story is about a girl coming into womanhood and realizing that she came, first of all, into womanhood during a time when they were telling women you could have it all. You could do it all. Get out there and live your life and do things on your terms. And that all sounded good to her because she, again, had wonderful parents that told her she could be anything that she wanted to be. So these were the things to which she aspired. So she went out and she got her education. And she also married and had children. And so she bought into the mantra of you can have it all, you can do it all. And so this young woman tried very hard to do just that. She tried very hard to be all to everybody all the time. And don't get me wrong, she loved and she bought into every moment of it. No one was forcing her to do this. She loved it. There were aspects about it that she loved. But somewhere in her 30s, she had a very physical come to Jesus meeting, we like to say here in the area that I live. And her come to Jesus meeting was a physical derailment. She was at home with her kids during the summer. By the way, her job was teaching. So in education, she was able to have almost the same schedule as her children. And this woman was someone who always felt like she had to do everything to the fullest. And so she'd had a very busy year in her education career that year. And while she was standing in her kitchen, she felt her heart start to palpitate. And she could also tell that her breathing was different. She started feeling really, really funny. Well, this led to subsequent anxiety attacks that entire summer, which led to a spiraling downward depression. Because in her mind, she couldn't stop thinking about what's going to happen to my kids, to my family, if something happens to me. So, as you've probably figured out by now, this character is me. And I went on to seek Christian counseling. I went on to seek counseling and get help, and it did help. So I started right back up again, one more time, with everything that I had done before, back to the fast pace and the pace of almost feeling as though I was living on automatic. Everything in my life felt robotic. It felt like someone had just put me on automatic pilot, and that's how I was functioning. And I just assumed that it was part of what everybody did. This is part of life. This is what we do in life. And again, I just believed it was what I needed to do. I bought into it. I, had my kids and all their activities. I had a few hours, maybe, on the weekend to enjoy my home, to enjoy the rural area, the country existence where I lived. And then it was all to start right back up again on Monday morning. Jackson Browne has a song out called The Pretender, and I always think about that because in retrospect, that's how I felt. I felt like I was the pretender. I was pretending that everything was good. I was getting up and starting it again. But somewhere in there, again, I had another, I want to say, breakdown. And these breakdowns somehow equal breakthroughs. No, I functioned. I still took care of my family. I still functioned at my job. But again, I knew something wasn't right. So finally, in my 50s, I decided, I believe I was 52, I decided to take a sabbatical. I decided to just step back and reevaluate everything. My kids were grown by this time, had three wonderful children. And again, what a wonderful life to look back and say that your kids have done well, that they're productive citizens, that they're doing wonderfully. But I kept feeling like something was missing. I would pray and, ask for guidance, but I was never still long enough to hear anything that God might have been trying to tell me. Only until I took the time off. And it was during that time that I understood what it meant to have a slower, more calmer, more solitary type of existence. And what I realized in doing that was who I was as a young girl. As a young girl, I was the youngest of four and didn't have a lot of people around me until I got into junior high and high school. As a young girl, I just was always finding my own way to entertain myself. I was always reading or listening to music. So I was definitely a bit of an introvert. And I knew this all of my life. I knew I was an introvert. However, I pushed because, again, the norms of society of that time was telling me I needed to do something else. So what I hope to offer during our time together is I want to show you everything about starting over, starting transitions again, moving forward in midlife. I'm 55 and I'm moving forward and I'm doing things I've never done before. And I'm also doing things that I grew up doing. I learned how to live off the land. I grew up learning how to live off the land. My husband and I have owned a medium-sized ranch since we've been married 32 years. And so I'm back to the basics. I'm back to that again. And so what I want to share with you is my journey of how I managed to transition, how I managed to go back from this crazy, manic type of life to go away from there and go back to the quieter and simpler. So I hope that you will join me on this journey. Join me on this quest to learn what it's like to live out here on the plains of Texas. It's not easy, but it's so rewarding. I hope to show you our everyday lives of what we do in homesteading, of taking care of livestock, the things that I do in my routines daily to help me transition through times of anxiety and depression, because I feel like that now more than ever, we are experiencing this at such high levels. And I hope to also bring us all together. I hope to show that we have more in common than we do differences, because it seems like that's all we hear anymore are the differences that we possess. And I would love for us to be able to share as students together what our commonalities are. And so stay with me and journey with me. Come with me where the wild wind blows of Texas, and come back with me to the simple life. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.